Making a decision. You always need a way of deciding between different options in computer science. In Java, you have two ways to do so. We're familiar with the if-else, and there's something known as a switch case. The idea of a switch case is if you have an if-else, and inside another if-else, another side another if-else, you can get what are known as deeply nested if-else statements. Switch case will avoid that. So very much like in Python, if some condition is true, this starts and ends these conditions. You can combine that with an else, and you can also add as many else-ifs as you want. Notice, just like our loops, there is no semicolon, because if we put a semicolon in, that would end the statement. Each one starts with a starting bracket and ends with an ending bracket. After a while, these are going to get very confusing, so feel free to put a comment in saying end of if statement, and then you know where you are. You could also comment the individual ones if you're doing a game, for example. This might be the end of some sort of choose your own adventure. Might be the end of option 1. So feel free to put comments in to keep yourself organized. So again, just like Python, if some condition is true, do this. Else if some other condition is true, do that. All the way down to your else. The conditions are the same as they were for the loops. Now what about this case? You switch according to some variable. If the variable has this as its answer, you do the following, and then you break the case. If it has this one, do the following and then break. If you have this one, break. And the default acts very much like the else statement. If it is not one of the given ones, then you'd say the following. The point of the break, if you don't have it in there, you will continue to execute everything from the first case. So let's say I started with this situation. Maybe I'm doing a math review and it says, where do you want to start? And I want to start at question 2 and keep going. If I want to keep going, just get rid of your breaks. If you want to treat it more like an if-else, where you only do one, then the breaks are crucial. Let's see it in action. We're going to have a number that we're going to input, and we're going to set up the switch according to that number. So this is the variable that determines what we do. If we type in the number 5, we're saying, no, your number's too small, and the break exits the switch statement. So it says, don't do any of this. If the number is 6, we say, well done. If it's a 7, you say too large. The default is, please type in something useful. So these numbers are going to depend on what your variable is. If you were giving the user a choice between, say, adding and subtracting, so if 1 was add and 2 was subtracting, then the numbers would change as well. So if we had this situation, 1 is add, 2 is subtract, then instead of the 5 and the 6 and the 7, we'd say if they typed in 1, do this. If they typed in 2, do that. And we wouldn't need this other case. So the purpose of a case statement, just a different way of organizing your work. Sometimes it's nice to have switch cases and if statements. These are terrific when you're doing menus. And so you are going to have to do this for one of your assignments. I'm asking you to use a switch statement. So 5a, you can do your regular if. 5b, I insist on a case or a switch case statement, just so you get used to it. And then after that, you decide what you want to do.